Well, hey there, Sunday school. All right, so who do we have a story today? We are going to talk about when the brothers that sold Joseph, their little brother, they sold him into slavery. Well, it had been a long time, years had gone by, and now we're going to see that they're gonna meet Joseph, and you'll see what happens. Okay, so back in Egypt, the Pharaoh had made Joseph the ruler over all Egypt. So Joseph was like in charge. He was rich and powerful, and his clothes were fancy. He had all sorts of treasures. He was very important in Egypt. And he was the one in charge of storing up the grain. So if you recall, there Joseph had that, he was able to interpret the vision, and he knew that there was a famine coming. So during all the years when God gave them lots of wonderful harvests, they had so much grain and so much food. And since Joseph knew that there was going to be a famine coming, that means like nothing would grow. There wouldn't be rain. They would have no food, no crops. So, since Joseph knew this, he was able to store up all this grain so that every single person in Egypt would have enough food for all the years during the famine. Not only that, he stored up enough so that other people in other countries would be able to come and buy food from them. So, lo and behold, the famine came. And the famine had already reached Jacob, Joseph's dad, and all the brothers. And they ran out of food. They were starving. So, Jacob had heard that in Egypt, they had all this grain. They had stores and stores of food. So, Jacob said to his sons, go and buy food for us. Gather all the sacks you have and stuff it with grain, and we'll pay for it. And he said, okay, I want the 10 oldest brothers, the 10 older brothers to go. But Jacob's like, I'm going to keep Benjamin here. Remember, Benjamin and Joseph were the only two boys that Jacob had from his wife Rachel. Rachel was the one he truly loved. And so he had that special place in his heart for Benjamin, and he didn't want Benjamin to face any danger in this journey where something could happen to him. So he kept Benjamin home. And so the boys went, the brothers went, and it took a long time. It was quite a journey to get to Egypt. They finally got there, and they presented themselves before the ruler. Well, the ruler was Joseph. He was the one in charge. So they went for him and they said, we need food. We're going to buy it from you and take it home. And Joseph recognized them. He saw, these are my brothers. These are the ones who sold me into slavery. But the brothers didn't recognize him. So he was all grown up now, and he was dressed like a very powerful ruler in Egypt. So he looked very Egyptian. He was speaking their language. He was not speaking the language that the brothers were speaking. So he was actually Joseph was using an interpreter. An interpreter is someone who will translate the language into the language that whoever's listening can understand. So Joseph was talking and talking, and he was actually speaking very harshly. Now you're going to find out why. Okay? He wasn't actually mad at his brothers, but he was speaking to them very harshly. In his heart, Joseph knew, these are my brothers, and I love them, and I've forgiven them. I want them to be happy and to have food and all this stuff. But there was something that was needing to happen so that Joseph's brothers could repent and could show that they trusted the Lord. So here's what Joseph did. He said, you are spies. You came over to see where you could raid Egypt and find our weaknesses. You're evil men, and I'm going to imprison you, put you to death. And the brothers were like, no, we're not spies. We're just some shepherds from Israel, we are from Cana. We are just here to buy some food and take it home to our family. And then Joseph's like, who's your family? Joseph knew, right? He's like, who's your family? And they said, well, our dad's name is Jacob, and there were 12 of us brothers, but one's no longer with us. And they were talking about Joseph. And then our youngest brother, Benjamin, he's at home with our dad. And so here's what Joseph did. He said, well, prove to me that you're not spies. Here's what you have to do. You have to go back, get your brother Benjamin, and prove to me that you're not lying about who you are. And he said, I'm going to keep Simeon, one of the older brothers. He said, I'm going to keep him as a prisoner so that you will come back with your brother. And they were terrified. They're like, God is punishing us for selling Jacob. They knew that they had sinned greatly. And you could tell now that they felt guilty for that sin. And so they were terrified. And so they did what Joseph said. Joseph gave them grain. He filled up their sacks with food. And they had to leave Simeon behind. And Simeon was imprisoned until the boys came back. So the boys traveled home. And they stopped part of the way, like for the night. And they were hungry. So they opened up their sacks for food. This was interesting what they found. They found the silver that they had used to pay for the food. They found that silver in their bags. And they were terrified because they're like, what happened? How did this happen? Now Joseph, or they didn't know it was Joseph. Now the ruler of Egypt is going to think we stole from him and we're going to be punished and killed. And so they're like, we don't know what to do. But they kept on going. They went home. They told Jacob, their dad, what had happened. They said, here's the food. We bought it, but there was still silver in our sacks. We don't know how that happened. And the ruler of Egypt said we had to come back with Benjamin, our little brother. Otherwise, he was going to kill Simeon. And Jacob was devastated. He's like, I can't let you take Benjamin, my only son left from Rachel. I just can't do it. But they ran out of food and they were starting to go hungry. And Jacob finally said, all right, you've got to do it. Take Benjamin. And Judah, one of the brothers, said, Dad, I promise you, I am going to keep Benjamin safe no matter what it takes. Even if I have to be imprisoned or if I have to be a slave, I will not let Benjamin get hurt. So they started back on their way. It took a long time, but they went as fast as they could. They got back to Egypt and they went before Joseph. They just thought he was the ruler of Egypt. They went back before him and they said, here we are. We brought back our brother. This is our youngest brother, Benjamin. And when Joseph saw that they had Benjamin with him, he was so moved. He was so emotional that he had to leave because he didn't want the brothers to find out who he was. He had to leave the room and he just started weeping. He was so happy to see his brother. So what Joseph did then, he invited the brothers over to his place for a big feast, for a meal. And the brothers were like, why is he doing this? Why is he treating us so nicely? So the brothers, as they were getting prepared to eat the meal, and Joseph wasn't there, Joseph's attendant, like his servant, was speaking with the brothers. And the brothers said, we are so sorry, but the silver that we used to pay for the grain, somehow it got back in our sacks, and we promise you we didn't steal it. And they were so afraid that they were going to get punished. But the attendant, Joseph's attendant, said, no, I have the money that you guys paid. God did that. God put that silver back in your bag. So the brothers were relieved, like, okay, at least they don't think we stole this silver. So the meal was prepared. And all the boys came, the brothers came into the place where they were going to eat. And Joseph had instructed his attendants, his servants, to seat the brothers in the order of age. So Benjamin, the youngest, and then the next oldest, the next oldest, the next oldest, all the way until all 11 brothers were sitting in the order of how old they were. And they were looking at each other like, this is weird. How is this happening? And then when the servants came out to serve the food, they gave them like tons of food, like just filled their plates with delicious things. And Benjamin, the youngest, got 5 times as much food. The servants gave him 5 times as much food as the other boys. Now, what's really cool, the brothers were not jealous. The brothers saw that the Benjamin was getting all this food, and they were happy for Benjamin. And so they ate and they feasted, and they were so happy. And then Joseph, now remember, Joseph hadn't told them who he was yet. So Joseph gave them the grain, filled up their sacks till they were like brimming with grain. There's so much food that they could take back. And he gave them all sorts of provisions, stuff they would need for the trip. He gave them all new clothes because their clothes were really worn out from that journey. And once again, he gave Benjamin 5 outfits, 5 wonderful, lovely outfits. And he gave the other brothers 1 outfit. And instead of being jealous and mad, the brothers were so happy for Benjamin. And they were so grateful for the clothes that they had gotten. So God had really changed their hearts. He had made them realize that God was the one who was in control. They didn't have to be jealous. They didn't have to complain about their little brother Benjamin. And so Joseph sent them on their way. Okay, so they were traveling. It got to be nighttime, so they sat down for the night. And then they went to sleep. And the next morning, when they got back up, Joseph had sent his servants out to go and yell at the brothers. And so these servants came out and they were like ready to go, and they were yelling at the brothers, and they're like, you guys stole silver, and you also stole the silver cup of Joseph, or of the leader of the land. And it was Joseph, of course. And the brothers were like, no, we didn't. They hadn't checked their sacks yet. They're like, no, we did not do that. We didn't steal anything. And the servants said, oh, yes, you did. Open up your bags. And whichever one of you has that silver cup, the one that belongs to Joseph, the leader of the land, he said, that brother of you will die. And then all the rest of you have to go into slavery and be Joseph's slaves. Now, they still didn't know it was Joseph, the ruler of Egypt. So they were terrified, but they're like, no, we didn't steal anything. Okay, they opened up their sacks, and guess what? They found the silver. Each one of them had silver in his sack, and Benjamin had the silver cup that belonged to Joseph. And so they were devastated. They were like, what's going to happen to us? What's going to happen to our little brother? And the attendants brought the brothers all the way back to Egypt now, all the way back, and they presented the brothers to Joseph. And the brothers they were scared. They thought for sure we're going to die, or Benjamin's going to die, and we're going to be enslaved. So when Joseph saw them, he could no longer hide his emotions. He was so overcome with love for his brothers, and he saw that they were scared, and he didn't want them to be scared. He loved them so much. So he sent all of his attendants out of the room. The brothers were still in the room, and Joseph began to weep. He was like, you guys, it's me. It's Joseph. It's the little brother you sent into slavery. It's me. God preserved my life. He saved my life, and he made me the ruler of Egypt. And he went to Benjamin, and he just wept and gave him the biggest hug you could ever imagine. And the brothers were like, it's you, because now he was speaking in their language. He's like, it's you, it's Joseph. And they were terrified still. They were like, we're going to get punished because we sent Joseph into slavery. There's no way he's going to forgive us. But Joseph was like, no, you guys, I forgive you. God allowed this horrible thing to happen to me. He allowed me to go through such pain and sadness and loneliness. He did that for good. He did it for my good, and he did it for the good of all these people. And he explained to the brothers, guys, I'm the one who knew that a famine was coming. God let me see that vision that this famine was going to come. And he helped me save all this grain up so that not only the Egyptians would be saved and would have food, but all of the people everywhere in the land. And so he told the brothers over and over again, you guys, I forgive you. It's okay. God really used this for the good of so many people. And Joseph said, I forgive you. And their brothers were just relieved. They couldn't believe that, wow, God had taken care of Joseph. And then not only taken care of Joseph, but God had helped Joseph forgive them for this sin that they had committed against him. And so now Joseph was like, okay, go back, get my dad Jacob. I want to see him again. And then he sent them on their way once again with tons of food. He sent them with like carts, like with wheels, like what they would have used to ride in, pulled by donkeys. And he sent all this stuff back to Jacob. And so they made the journey back. This time they were not scared. They knew that the Lord was with them, that they were going to be safe, and that they were going to get their dad. And so they went and got Jacob. They said, Jacob, Dad, your son Joseph is alive. And Jacob was like, no, he's not. He was torn up by wild animals years ago. And they're like, no, Dad, we promise you, he's alive. Come and see. And he's the ruler of all Egypt. So Jacob said, okay, I believe you. And he went back with the brothers to Egypt, and he rode in the cart. Now he was like 130 years old at this point. So he rode in the cart. They brought him back, and Jacob and his son Joseph were reunited. And they were so happy. And Joseph, he made sure that Jacob, all the brothers, all their wives and their kids and their servants, he made sure that they were well taken care of, and he gave them a big chunk of the land to live in. And so Jacob was able to grow old and pass away knowing that Joseph was alive and he was safe. And that is the story of Joseph forgiving his brothers. Bye, Sunday School.